Hello and welcome back to the Sunday podcast brought to you guys by sportsshoes.com. As always, good morning. We are back coming up on the show. What do we make of Femke Bol's debut, mate? We'll go through that. Georgia Hunter-Bell certainly looked good. And of course, our main topic for the day, who will win the British Champs this weekend? We have guests coming on in about 10 minutes or so. And Matt and I will also chip in with our opinions. But mate, how are you first of all? How was your weekend?
It's busy, mate. It's busy. Down at the Cross Challenge Saturday. So that was good. And then I was, commentating on a meet in Dortmund on Sunday. So actually the weekend just flew by and already straight back into it. But we could review a little bit of cross action. I mean, the Cross Challenge had some, it was very sharp on the, at the front end, had some good athletes in those sort of top 5 placings. And then, in a Cross Challenge fashion, it obviously, the depth of the field whittles down a little bit. But, and there's talk of whether to merge it in with a league match, because I was on the mic, so maybe it's my fault, but there wasn't a huge atmosphere there, put it that way, at the iconic Parliament Hill. But it was a very, very tough course. And, I know we spoke to Eamon Martin, didn't we, a few years ago when he got that course off the ground, and it was so boggy. It was very twisty. There's no flat sections. It's just constantly turning uphill or downhill. It's one of the most brutal courses. But I did get a little bit of inside info from a few people. Europeans is looking like it might come to the UK in 27, and the way European athletics want to run their bids is they're struggling for host, right? Like all competitions these days are struggling for host, and I think they want to start nailing down a host country or a host city for a number of years. So we could see, if the European cross does come, we could see it come for the next 2-3 years.
Would it then move around course-wise within the UK, or is
presumably
it like in same course?
Presumably. I don't actually know, to be honest. I mean, this is I think it's very early stages. Nothing's a given. Nothing's confirmed. No. There's just some exciting conversations, I think, being had. And wouldn't that be epic, to host the European Cross Country Championships for us as a nation?
Oh, I certainly would. I think we'd get ridiculous crowds. I think we'd put on a great show, and be cool to, I guess. Particularly, we always critique the trials in a sense of it not being relevant sometimes to the Eurocross, but it certainly would be in that sense.
We could run the trial on the course.
Yeah, but maybe we wouldn't want to do that just in terms of churning it up 2 weeks before. Maybe we would. Maybe that's the best way to get two gold team medals in the seniors is on a churned up course. But mate, how good did Hugo Milner look on Saturday?
Yeah, it pains me to say it because Slade got second there, but he looked good. He stunned the field a little bit. He just had Hugo Milner fashion. He just went out so hard and got a gap, and he had a 10-15 second gap after a lap of that race. Which I think a lap was 2 kilometers pretty much. So he did look good. He's had a long time away. He's going to go Armagh on Thursday, and he's going to try and win the national cross in what is just under 2 weeks' time now. So I'll see if Slade can put a stop to that.
Coming back, is he, for the to retain that title? He's got to, I suppose, hasn't he?
Of course. Kingston was there. Kingston was looking good. Angus McMillan, Callum Johnson, and on the women's side, Ellen Curran, big victory for her. That's Jess Gibbon wasn't there. Now she's looking strong to go to the national cross. Meanwhile, it was the club Eurocross on the weekend as well, where I saw Herne Hill women went out there. Jake Smith's sister posted a top 10 result, beat Lucy Jones. So that's caught my eye a little bit. She's clearly shaping up well. But hey, we'll preview the national next week. We're still a way off from that. Let's focus on the track because there were some good results this week. And do you want to start with Femke Bol, mate? People are divided on Femke Bol.
Yeah, mixed opinions. I mean, I'll just go out there and say I thought she looked incredible, mate, to be honest. Like I don't know how you can expect her to really have a better debut, to be honest. Like unless she was like thrown into a race where she's with Georgia Bell and Keeley and is having to put up with the likes of them. I mean, she ran it not in the best way. Obviously, we've all seen the splits, that 32-second third 200. But what I would say with Femke Bol is that was purely not, anyway, my interpretation of it anyway was that looked like purely like her just like mispacing it rather than her.
Yeah, it was.
In a complete box on the third lap, right? Like she's not died in that race. It's just they've gone off a bit too quick and then she's adjusted and then she's just not sure how far she should be going and she's just jogged around and then realised, oh yeah, I better kick in the last 50 metres as well, to make sure she gets that sub 2. And I thought 1:59, it's a national record, first Dutch woman under 2 minutes.
Yeah, for me, it's wild to have a 5-second differential between your quickest 200 and your slowest 200. Like, that is, that's unheard of at elite level 800 meters. Maybe at the very most, there's like a 4-second, and that's if you've gone off, really hard and your last 200, you're fading a bit or whatever. But to sort of, have that third 200 as slow as it was, she just looked like a bit of a fish out of water for me. Like, just need to understand her effort levels over 800s, understand where she can squeeze. I think you would, if you were Keely and co watching this, you would be a bit like, there's a threat there. For me, it won't happen this year. I think she won't have enough this year. She looks very good. She might run in the summer and run 154. Physically, she's probably got that in her.
I think just next race, if she races again indoors, I think she runs 156, 157, like straight away.
Well, that's a bold take. I mean, her next race will probably be a championship race. Maybe she'll do another 800.
As in, like, if next time she time trials.
Yeah, time trial. Bit of a threat. Yeah, I can imagine. For me, if you're racing Femke, I think at the moment it would be very easy to beat her, though. Like, all you'd need to do is just have a good change of pace. You'd box her in a little bit, you'd push her around a little bit. I think I would be really intrigued to see how she does at the championships. But I don't think she's got all the tools in her trade yet to go and win a championships, unless she just takes it out incredibly hard. But if she does that, you're trying to outrun basically the best 800 meter runner we've seen for the last decade in Keely Hodgkinson, or even sort of Georgia Hannah-Bell. I think we fancy her chances sitting behind her. So, but definitely going to be a threat for the future. But then again, to improve 3 or 4 seconds over 800 is very, very difficult. And what's to say, this is her. She is the closest to probably her 400 meter best that she'll ever be in this 800 era now. She's probably not going to get quicker over 400. She's probably run her PB. And so that is obviously her strength. That's why she looks so easy early on. And then so it's how much does that endurance give her, or does it take away from her original?
Yeah, and like you say, her 400
skill
ability is going to deteriorate by her not training specifically for 400 meters. So,
and how much does that affect her?
Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
I just think when you run a 26.9, she go through in, or maybe that was the pacemaker, but I think the splits. I actually think the splits were a little dodgy. But yeah, because I think that was the pacemaker.
Yeah, she was on the green. Yeah, she was on the green lights.
But anyway, you go through in that looking as easy as she did. That's when you're so dangerous, right? She just, and if anyone does try and take it through quick, because I don't see her trying to go gun to tape though, especially in her first season doing it.
I think she has to, given that stride. Jesus. I'd love to see her in 4th place in an 800. Hey,
yeah,
some of the listeners sent in. I basically just pitched the question: future champion? No. About a lot of people have said no, absolutely not. Surprised she's not tempted to go back to the 400 hurdles. Now Sydney is pregnant. One person said yes. Wow. So there you go. People are quite divided, and that 159 didn't impress many people. Interesting.
I think they're terrible takes, personally, mate. One race, she wins it. She goes sub 2. Looks like she's jogging. Doesn't pace it well, and in a good way. That's what I'm saying. If you pace it perfectly and you look like your eyeballs out, and then you run 159.9 in the first one, then we're like, okay, yeah, there's not much else to give. But it's dangerous because she didn't pace it well, looked like she was jogging, and then realised, oh yeah, better kick now. And she still wins the race quite comfortably. Bish bash bosh. Easy. Look, someone else who did look good and obviously relates to our topic this week in terms of British champ, Georgia Hunter-Bell. Phenomenal over 1,500 metres. Just, I think I say it every time we talk about one of Georgia Bell's races, mate. She's just so smooth, isn't she? Such a smooth operator. Looks so composed. Looks like she's been on top of the world for the past 10 years. Winning races, and just looks so comfortable being in and around the front of 1500 meter races. Like, I think almost particularly indoors. I know she had the blip last year, losing out to Guillemot, but Georgia Hunter-Bell is such a good technician indoors.
It's that deceiving wind-up for her, which is just her strength, right? And she did it again I think she closed the last 400 in 59, 60, last 200 in 28. 28 for me for the last 200. She's just making it, obviously it's not easy, making it look very controlled. Yeah, runs 4 dead. Not that many people.
That's what I'd say. Do you know what? Because I watched both of these races last night back to back. I watched Femke, and then I was catching up. So I watched Femke's race, then I watched Georgia's race, and it looked in that 1500 they look like they're moving a lot quicker than Femke Bol.
Well, yeah,
that is how you know Femke Bol is within herself.
Yeah, it's going to take Femke a while to really understand what she could do over the 800, to understand those effort levels and just become more efficient at that speed. She just didn't look as efficient as she could be. Her arms, it's almost like she didn't want to use her arms at points because that would just make her go too fast, and then she just wouldn't have enough for it. But yeah, that's to be expected. I mean, Bell, look, we'll talk about British champs just quickly. We have got a couple callers to get on, and they're going to give their opinions on what we saw on the weekend. But actually, we haven't had much demand to come on this week, and maybe it's because people generally just don't want to come on, but also the British champs has crept up on us, and I've heard rumours of under 1,000 tickets have been sold. Barely anyone's going to watch. Is there any hype around it? Very little hype. And I think part of the reason for the lack of hype is, look, the start lists still aren't confirmed. We've got a few accepted entries. We don't know what people are doing. How can you build a race when you haven't got confirmation of who's actually doing it? How can you sell tickets when you haven't got those big headline names confirmed, which they actually have, but they just haven't really announced it and put it in our face enough? And there's been loads of things going on, the World Tours and cross countries and road races, and it's Barcelona, it's Seville this weekend, but it feels like this indoor season is just running away from us a little bit, and British champs is going to come and go, but we're going to do our best to preview it. Have we got a guest on the line, Lum?
We do, mate. Let's ask the public what they think, mate. Let's ask Ryan if he thinks the British champs is dying, and if it has crept up on us.
Hey fellas, how you doing?
Yeah, all good. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Ryan, firstly, what did you make of Femke's result? I know you watched it keenly. What did you make of it?
Yeah, straight into it. I mean, I guess, when did we find out? Maybe like October or something last year, and kind of like running media in general has been going a bit wild over it, haven't they? Because she's like such a kind of global star and big personality, and changing distances like that is something like huge. And then I guess you see the first split, she runs like 27 flat, and you're thinking, oh my god, that's the 400 in her, like, and she looks so smooth as well, doesn't she? She's like full of elasticity, and it looks like she's jogging, but to split 27, like, if you think about some of the men's distance races, that's like the kind of splits they're closing in almost. And yeah, she ends up holding on, gets a little bit tough and a little bit slow and grindy in the middle, but then she still comes away with like a Dutch indoor national record, sub 2 minutes on debut. The funny thing is she's the first Dutch woman indoors or outdoors to break 2 minutes since Safan Hassan, since back in 2018. So, I mean, it depends which lens you put on it, really, because obviously when you look at it that way, it's like, oh my god, unbelievable, like world-class debut, like Keely, watch out. But then you do also have to put a bit of context into it, like, if you take a step back and look at some of the other girls and what they were running last year, there's obviously still a few seconds to be found. So it just makes it a little bit more interesting coming into this year.
Yeah, it certainly does, mate. I think, Matt, you're the same as me when we've just been chatting about it, haven't we? And that we were fairly impressed, and I think we think she's got a lot to give, but I think it's the tactical aspect that we're not as convinced by, and I think she's going to take her a couple of years to adjust to the tactics of a championship, but she's certainly got a fast time in her.
Yeah, I mean, they're almost like the unspoken elements, aren't they? Like, if you think of the 400, she's just used to running around in one lane. Now she has to get used to like merging, running behind the pacemaker, running 2 laps outdoors or 4 laps indoors. She's just used to just taking the bends once. So yeah, there's so many variables to come into it, as well as like the actual distance changing.
Ryan, I mean, the 800 has been a great event over the last few years, and I think we've obviously had a huge British interest for it. We've got British champs this weekend. We were just discussing how it's crept up on us. It seems to have gone under the radar a little bit this year. What are you looking forward to most this weekend?
Oh, I was trying to look at the start list before, and is it still at the point where it's like accepted, invited, declined? It's hard
My
to
point
interpret,
exactly.
isn't it?
It's impossible to get excited, right? Isn't it? When you don't know who's doing it, and you got certain athletes on there, so like Laura Muir, etc., and maybe not so much these days, but just notorious for waiting till the last minute to accept or decline different events. Like Georgia Hunter-Bell is invited for everything, of course, because she's qualified. We know she probably will just run the 15, but it would be nice to know, wouldn't it? It would be nice to know who's lining up against who.
Mate, I mean, the good thing for the likes of us is like in running, global and mainstream media isn't really that big, but then when it's kind of left down to the likes of you guys to try and preview these meets, and you have to read through 80 athletes' names who've been invited rather than just the ones who are actually on the start list, it makes the job of trying to build the hype a little bit harder, because you're like, there's lots of unanswered questions. Just because it says invited, does that mean they're definitely not coming, or last minute they're going to turn up, and then you'll do the preview and completely miss them?
Ryan, you're a fan of the sport. Are you going to go and watch British Champs? What
Mate,
would make you want to buy a ticket this weekend?
So the funny thing is, I'm in Perth, Australia, and we've actually got our own bronze meet happening this weekend, the Perth Track Classic. And British 800 meter guy, is it Tiernan Corcoran? He's down.
Yep.
He's down on the start list with Femke Bol. They've been training over in Melbourne with Justin Rinaldi. So I think I'll be putting my money into that one this weekend.
Understandably so, mate. You wouldn't want to make the transatlantic travel to watch the British Champs. Right, mate. Great call. Actually, before you go, that's interesting. Tiernan Corcoran, I have seen he's out there. Have you heard how he's moving? What can we expect from Tiernan Corcoran this weekend?
Yeah, mate. Well, he's been training with Femke Bol and underneath Rinaldi with that Fast 8 track club. So, I mean, that kind of bodes well. Femke Bol ran his own Australian record last year. So if he's kind of in shape and in form, then no doubt they will have been doing some silly things over in Melbourne. There's also a couple of Japanese guys down on the start list. And like typically in an Australian domestic meet, you wouldn't really get them. But with Melbourne Track Club, they often bring over some Japanese guys to help them train. So, yeah, I think it's anyone's really. It'd be interesting to see how they go.
And you're on the ground in Australia. You've got huge talent, big distance running depth. I know you're British, but you've got a say in the scene down there. And why are we seeing so many great Australians at the moment? What's going on over there that's different to usual?
It is interesting, isn't it? Well, I mean, like from my point of view, just experiencing Australia from a lifestyle perspective, having tried to run in the UK and running over here, it's a whole different ball game. Like the amount of respect I have for marathoners in the UK who are like doubling morning and evening now in those cold, dark, wet winter days compared to over here. It's just like such a joy to train in, and I think they kind of put lots of cash into it at grassroots level. It's bred through them in school. Like athletics is popular, and like I don't know, in the UK maybe if you're doing track and field as a junior, once you start hitting puberty and like your mates go the other way, you might start like, I don't know, get the mick taken out of you, whereas here it's like the cool kids are doing track and field. So yeah, systemically they've got it right.
Yeah, love that. All right, Ryan, thanks so much for jumping on this morning. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and enjoy the bronze meet this weekend as well.
Yeah, cheers, boys. Look forward to catching up post the meet.
Cheers, mate. Bye. There you have it. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd rather go to a bronze meet over in Perth as well if I had the option than the British Champs. But yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it, mate? Like in terms of the, I guess, building the hype, if you like, when we don't have the entries accepted and things like that. And can you imagine trying to go through these lists if you didn't really, and this is not trying to say that we know everything, right? But it's a lot easier to go through these lists when you kind of know who probably is going to accept and isn't, like based off other things. But if I was trying to go through this list with absolutely no context or a lack of context, it's a complete minefield,
Yeah, and this is where I just think the system needs changing. We need to get rid of this invitation. It's very difficult indoors. There's not enough races. Like, how else would you go qualify for British Champs? But yeah, there's.
I think they can have the same thing. I think they need to have the deadlines earlier. Like we're Tuesday before.
Yeah,
Saturday
they need to have the deadline.
You need to accept it last week.
Yeah, they need to have published this stuff. 2 weeks out, really. But again, there's not huge amounts of time to run they want people to have run a certain standard to go to the British Champs. So it's difficult, but you're right. If you didn't follow the sport, you've got to go on the British Athletics website, click about 8 different links, and then you land yourself on the start list. And, for example, there's 77 athletes in the men's 1500 invited at the moment. 16 have accepted. And I even think out of that 16 who have accepted, you're probably going to get, well, there's a few guys who have accepted for both the 3000 and the 1500, for example. Yeah. They're not going to do both. So you're probably looking, we could have a straight final in the men's 1500 as things stand. And
but then you think about doing both, wouldn't you? Right?
You would. Actually, I look at, they'd be on the same day, when they're on a Sunday. It'd be difficult. And I look at obviously the 1500 this year. I was surprised there was not more take-up from the male perspective. Look, by the way, the women are holding this thing together. Like they really are. We're going to have all the stars there. We're going to have Keely there. We're going to have Georgia Hunter-Bell there. They've got serious depth. They've got 3 or 4 women who have all run the standard in the 1500, for example. There is going to be some fierce competition and a lot to run for on the women's side. They are driving this championship this weekend. However, I was stunned that the 1500 standard got slower this year. It went back to 3:36, and the competition to try and go to the world indoors doesn't seem to be there. And that surprised me this year. When as soon as I saw that standard come out, I thought surely there'd be a few wanting to, giving that a crack. But it's so difficult with the races. In and around Europe, we see basically America's the place to do it. Europe, of course, you have these great meets, but the tracks, even where Georgia ran her 1500 in Karlsruhe, it's 4 lanes. The bends are so tight. It's 4 lanes, it's tight. It's not a fast track. And I think that's what made that result even more impressive. In Dortmund, I was commentating on a meet, which was exceptionally tight bends. Right, and long straights. And so the atmosphere at these meets is amazing. And of course, it's everything we love about the European circuit, but a lot of them are not the places to really go and run fast. You talk about the 800, getting sort of 8 men in an indoor 800 it's chaotic. But some of the leading names in that 1500, Sam Charig, Elson, but I think he'll run the 3000. Fogg, the Higgins brothers, for me, they're probably the favourite. Tom Keane, again, but he's in the 3000. Given where he's been this year, there is time after the champs.
Ted Higgins as well has accepted a 3,000 too.
Exactly, so it's very difficult. Henry Jonas is looking basically the best. He ran a great 1500 the other day, just missing the standard. Actually, 3:37 is 3:36. So if he gets amongst that top 2, which I think he might, he'll be able to go and chase that standard in Europe. And for me, he's probably, when we're just looking at the men's 1500. I'm actually probably just going to put him as the favourite. I just think he's physical. He's got great 800. He's got a good kick on him. He'll position himself well. He's hungry. He wants this title. He's probably out of this whole field, the Foggs. He's probably the one who's like, I really want to go to that world indoors. Like, that's my aim this indoor season. And I think, he, for me, is probably going to be the threat. Of course, the Higgins brothers, who are moving very well and haven't had the opportunity to get in a really fast race. But outside of that, it's about it. Sam Charig, but he hasn't raced indoors. He's accepted. Will he run? Here we are.
Yeah, and then men's 3000, obviously Kerr has accepted. Let's hope he is coming. I presume he is, but he's accepted his entry, so nice to see a nice
He's
early
not doing
acceptance.
It. There's no way Kerr's doing it.
Why has he accepted his entry then?
Well, yeah, it's almost like I think you have to. I don't know if I don't know if there's a rule, but surely Kerr's not doing this. Maybe I've missed somewhere on socials where, he said he is doing it. But and again, in the 3000, unfortunately, the standard being 7:33, of course, Kerr's the only one eligible to go. And, the rest of them are racing for a title.
I don't think Kerr's ever shied away from rocking out to British champs. And this year, as much as we talk about, it's a big year for Brits, I think for someone like himself, I think going to indoor and stuff as well, I think he would just want to go to as much as he can. And I'm not saying he wouldn't get picked anyway, but yeah, I actually think it makes sense for him to rock out and run a 3K.
He's got to buy. Maybe he'll want to run a championship 3K, but for him, he's of such the level that this wouldn't even be a test for him.
No.
Keane and McCluckley have run well. They've run in the 740s. Both of those ended in the 1500, so would they even do the 3000? McMurray also ended in the 1500. Jack Kavanagh, Kerr, great runner, but Kerr's light years ahead. So yeah, they're your entries there. And this is what I mean by I think the women are they're the ones holding this thing together. We'll quickly talk on the 800.
Yes, in the 800, Bottrell's in there. Ethan Hussey's accepted as well. Kai Learmonth has accepted yet again at the British Indoor Champs, so love to see it. Patterson's, of course, in there. after a great run last week, and Will Rab Johns as well.
Yeah, and again, this Bucks is the same weekend in Sheffield. So from you've got a lot of athletes. You talk about ticket sales. You've probably got a lot of athletes at Bucks who would probably go and watch the British champs, but they're going to be in Sheffield that weekend, right? And I think Rab Johns is going to do that. I don't even think he'll be in the. I think he might race Bucks for Loughborough. So you've got Matt McKenna's moving well. I mean, this is Ben Patterson's to lose, and it's going to be how does he approach this? Does he dictate things? Does he take this on? Not leave anything to chance. Really dominate and show his class. And if I was Patterson, I probably would just look to do that. See how you find getting out there and front running. But other than that, I mean like David Race is in there. He's always one to watch. He's dangerous. But, I mean, it kind of shows in the rankings. Last year we had, I think, 10. Or we had 3 145-ish. We had 5 or 6 sub 147. This year, nothing of the sorts. We've got Patterson on 145, Hussey 146, Reece Sharman 147. If you're running sub 148, you're in the top 5 in the UK right now.
But indoors is tough, isn't it? I think we did touch on this last weekend. That I think maybe we are going to see a bit of a change in that, and we start to really see people click over 800 meters indoors. But historically, it's not been that quick.
And I also think for the first time with the Europeans in the UK and the Commonwealths, people have got to come out firing this summer. And actually, I feel like a lot of the depth that we usually see indoors, they've decided, I'm going to pass. They're almost treating it like when professionals decide they're not going to do indoors because they've got an early summit, when it was Oregon and the world champs were in July or whatever. A lot of people were passing indoors. They were like, I just need to make sure I'm ready for worlds. And it's almost, that's happening, but just further down the field a little bit. A lot of people appreciating that they're going to get away to training camp in March, April, and they're going to have to be running PBs in May, June if they want to have any chance of going to the Europeans.
Yeah, and I think it's just... there's also just a bit of if there's a lack of excitement from people like us maybe wanting to spectate the indoors and things like that, I think for the athletes as well, surely there must be a similar thing in that. I feel like it used to be a big deal, or people used to like really, really want to go out and compete at the indoors, and that was like a big part of the calendar, was to go and compete in these races. And now I think, people would just rather train for London Marathon, for example.
Yeah, that's part of it. Hey, have we got a caller on the line list? We got Rich here, kindly calling in before his working day. Rich, what do you make of the British champs this weekend? What are you most looking forward to?
Well, firstly, good morning, boys. Pleasure to be on. What am I most looking forward to? A tough one. I was having a little browse over the accepted entries last night. I think the women's 3K looks really interesting. I think we've got Snowden and Nuttall in that. That'll be an interesting battle between them two. But then you've got the likes of Fitzgerald in there, Thorner, Walker, India Weir. As I was looking through it and I was seeing them names that were accepted, I was like, this is pretty stacked, this women's 3K. So I'm really intrigued to see how that one plays out. And yeah, what do you boys think of the 3K?
Yeah, I think that's a great shout, mate. We were literally just saying how the women's side of the championships are holding it together in terms of all the big names are in there. We're going to see a proper race in that women's 3K. And I think you're bang on with those. Like, you've got the 2 big names, plus you've got some of those coming up. You obviously got Thorner, like you said, coming from the steeplechase. How well will she do after the stellar summer she had? So yeah, excited as well, to be honest. I think there's a few names as well that I'm thinking if we could imagine we got Georgia Bell in there as well. I'm just stack the 3K instead, but of course she's going to focus on.
Yeah, totally agree. I think what you mentioned there about the women's side of things holding the champs up, I did clock that last night when I was going through the start list and seeing the names that had entered. Like, I was looking at the women's 800 and I was like, oh, there's a few storylines in that one. Looking at the women's 1500 and the 3K, yeah, there's storylines there. And then I got down to the men's section. Actually, I was looking at the men's 1500 and I'd seen that there's only 16 have accepted, which I thought that's really on the low side anyway. And then you've got to think of them 16. Well, there'll be 1 or 2 that might have a little niggle that might not turn up. I might be ill. And then there's a couple of boys in there like your Adam Foggs, your Callum Elsons that have also accepted for the 3K. So then you start to think, actually, how many men are we going to see line up in that 1500 metre final? And I think when you see where British middle distance runnings at across the board in the men's and women's field, it would feel a little bit disappointing to see, no heats and potentially an underfilled final, I think.
Without a doubt. We've literally just been echoing a very similar opinion, mate, to be honest, with that men's 1500. So you're right, though. The women are, for me, they are the storylines. And is it just a case of actually our women right now are outperforming our men? Of course, we've got some great men in the likes of Whiteman and Kerr over the 1500. But when we turn to the 5000 and the 800 is very deep, but we've never seen notoriously those guys step indoors. This is Patterson's first year indoors. Yeah. Bergen doesn't like to come indoors, so we haven't seen those guys compete much indoors. Is it just a case of the women are just they're much closer on a world-class level than our men are at the moment, and the men have to catch up?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I guess, the statos out there would really look into it and say, well, actually, equivalent times, we've got X, Y, Z doing this and that. But that's what the feel is like when you're looking at it from the outside. Like, say the women's 800, again, we talk about storylines with that. Think like the performance that Buffy displayed in Boston a few weeks ago, that has sort of elevated that event a little bit more for me. So you've got Buffy, then you've got Hodgkinson, who has accepted her invite. So we assume she's going to be there. So then there's that storyline. But then amongst that as well, Shakira King in there had an amazing run. I don't know whether any of you seen it at the England Champs at the weekend. She front ran a 2:03, but she closed in about 29, 30 seconds. Now, I'm not saying she's going to turn up and wipe the floor with Keely and Izzy, but it just shows that quality is there, like, right the way through the field. And certainly that women's 800 is one to watch out. Like I said, when I was going through the list last night, I was like, oh, that women's 800 will be a good race. Damn, that women's 3K will be a good race. I said, I want to see the 1500 too. So there's so much quality in those middle distance events, like.
Rich, who wins the women's 800? Is he Buffy or Keely Hodgkinson? Is it even a race?
It's a tough one. I think Izzy is in fantastic form. I mean, that 1:57.40, unbelievable. Second UK all time, top 10 all time indoors. But I just think that when Keely turns up to race, she turns up to race. We've seen that last season when she came out and she'd been injured, hadn't had a great season, hadn't had a great build, to that season opener. And she came out and was it a 1:54 she dropped as a season opener last year? And I think if she's in shape, she'll be able to come out and run 1:57. Will Buffy be able to do that in Birmingham? I'm not too sure. I think Buffy will certainly have a good go at her mind. I don't think there's any, there's certainly no lack of confidence in that one. But I'm interested to see in that race as well, the likes of how Ellie Baker and Shakira King get on in that as well, because, we know what it's like sometimes when athletes really commit, they can overcommit and, people can pick them off. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch out. But I think for me, Keely will take that one.
Rich, just before you go, what would make you buy a British Champs ticket? If you haven't already, because I think ticket sales are down this weekend, and you're a fan of the sport.
I am a fan of the sport. Yeah, I am a fan of the sport. What would make me buy a ticket? Well, if it was a little bit closer, that would help. I am actually going to be there. I'm going to be doing a little bit of media stuff when I'm there, so I will get to see the champs on the Sunday. I think one thing that we're seeing differently, say, if you look at the European champs in Birmingham, what they're doing already on social media is just building that. They started a few months ago, they're building that. Sport is all about storylines, I think, and the more you can build around that, that's going to get people talking. I don't think the British Athletics, the indoor champs team have done enough of that, personally, and I think that if we're wanting to get people and get bums on seats, you would want to see more stories about, like, what we're talking about here, because there's plenty to talk about.
Agreed.
Lovely.
Great stuff. Well, enjoy work, Rich. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. It'll be a great day. But yeah, thanks for having me on, boys. Appreciate it, and love the show. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks very much. Enjoy the champs.
All right, boys. Take care. See you later.
Yeah, spot on there about some of those races, particularly at the women's 3K. Mate, let's talk through the women's 1500 metre field, because that's the only one we haven't really got through the main entries for.
No, we haven't. I mean, yeah, Georgia Hunter-Bell, to be honest, just runs away with it, right? Shannon Flockhart's accepted. Holly Dixon's accepted again. Another one who's in the 3K. But Ava Lloyd, Erin Wallace, these women are just on the cusp. I mean, Riki ran well, got her qualifying time in her, but for me, it's going to be about, again, obviously you've got Georgia, but it's what happens behind her. And, what happens with Wallace, what happens with Ava Lloyd, they're going to be going for the same spot, really.
Yeah.
As simple as
Reveille's
that.
accepted as well.
Of course, in the 3K as well, though, Snowden in the 1500 and the 3K. So we are seeing a similar storyline play out in the 15 and the 3 on the women's side as we are in the men. Just so many of them accepting in both, and will just make a decision late on. And do you know what? I think they're waiting for these start lists to be confirmed so they can then decide, what will I do? What have I got a better crack at? Because someone like Katie Snowden is quite close on both. I think the world standard's 8:33. She's run 8:39, so it's doable if she wanted to go for the worlds over the 3K. But if you've run your 3K in Boston, you're not going quicker, are you? So surely she's got the standard over 1500. Surely she'll shoot for that, try and challenge Georgia. But like I said, for me, it's Wallace and Ava Lloyd. See what they do. Riki's in there. Is this the start of Riki moving up in distances? Just full stop. Come the summer as well. We saw it a bit last year. Is she waving goodbye to the 800? And I'm sure watching Izzy Boffey run 157, seeing Shakira King come through, obviously Phoebe Gill, we hope she's back this summer. That 800's getting more and more competitive, and is Riki starting to drift into the 1500, which is still very difficult. You look at the women who are also, and you look at Erin Wallace, you look at Ava Lloyd, where these women are going to be, and just, I guess common sense tells you they're in M11, they're probably going to be running 4 minutes, there or thereabouts this summer.
Yeah, and just the confidence they'll have in their training and in their approach to doing that as well. It's just, you can't buy that. But look, we mentioned how the women's side is stacked. Is it also the easiest to call, or is that us classic predictions in that? Surely it's Hodge Concern in the 800, Hunter Bell in the 1500, and Hannah Nuttall in the 3K, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But one thing I would say, Boffey has made a bit of a living on just hanging on and finishing late, and Keely will have to go some to outrun Boffey. Keely's outrun the best in the world. She's done it on the biggest stage of all. She's done it at the Olympics. She's responded with 50 to go at the Olympics or 100 to go. I don't think she'll be too worried. Rich made a good point. When Keely comes out racing, there's not. I was like, well, it's a season opener for her. Season opener.
You're not
turning
up unless she's about to destroy this race.
Yeah, she's got it. Yeah,
there's no way.
Yeah, I think you're right. And she's racing again on Thursday. That'll be a time trial for her against Femke, I'm pretty sure. So this will just be, getting the legs turning over. She's got a heat to ease in as well.
Yeah. Easy as you like. And then over on the men's side, Patterson favourite in 1500. Kerr, if he does it, of course, favourite in the 3K. And then our men's 1500 is probably the race that is a lot more open out of the 6.
Yeah, I told you, I'm going with Henry Jonas. He'll win that. He's got to beat Adam Fogg. He's got to beat the Higgins brothers, but I think Jonas takes that men's 1500. Well, there you go. Good to hear from our two guests today. Like I said, not many of you coming forward, so please get in touch, drop us a message, drop us a DM over the next few weeks on the topics. And I can only presume it's because you're probably like us and you're a little bit baffled who is actually racing British Champs this weekend. And probably some of you might not have even realised British Champs was happening this weekend. Anyway, let's talk you through the timetable. Women's 800 or men's 800 will kick things off on Saturday at basically 4 o'clock, 10 to 4. Women's 800 round 1. About an hour after them at 5 o'clock. Then you've got the 1500 heats at 7 p.m, either side of 7 p.m. And then on Sunday, the finals, they get going at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And obviously they run through till 3:30, 4 o'clock. And they're pretty much back to back 3000s, 15s, 800s. They're all in there. So there we have it. Let's see who's going to be a British indoor champion. Let's see who's on the plane to the world indoors as well. And in Lum next week, it's the big one. We'll obviously review the British champs early part of the episode. So tell us who you think impressed most, and we might have a few selection policy dramas over the next few weeks. The deadline is not till the first week of March, by the way, so they have got time to chase a standard, so that team won't be picked straight away. But for us, we'll be previewing the National Cross Country Championships, and let us know your best memories of the National Cross. Will you be doing it? Will we see you up there in Durham as well? But that will be the topic next week, and also we have some more debatable topics, I should say, over the next few weeks coming as well. So thanks all for listening once again, and we will catch you next week.